Welcome everybody to this Beam Exchange Grab the Mic webinar. The Beam Exchange is a platform for sharing knowledge and insights about the applications of the market systems development approach. My name is Mike Klassen, and I'm a member of the Beam Exchange team, along with my colleague Isabel, who's here today, and my other colleague Mike Albu, who's usually doing this role. So you're getting one mic swapping for the other in our Grab the Mic. There's too many mics. Um, so the purpose of these webinars, is really to exchange lessons and knowledge about various applications of market systems development. And it's meant as a place for organizations to kind of come forward to share insights, especially from work on the ground. And so if you haven't presented and you're interested in the future, please do get in touch. But the focus now is on the wonderful colleagues we've got with us from Liberia. So today we'll be hearing from the Prospects program in Liberia. And as you can see on screen, the title of the presentation is about boosting youth employment in consumer goods retailing. This is this builds nicely on a webinar we had at the beginning of the year in January on market systems development for employment, and a study and a library that are both live on the Beam Exchange. And actually, this program, Prospects, and this intervention in consumer goods were both featured, so that you can read more about that. There's an intervention summary that we'll link to in the chat once we get going. Um, so yeah, join me in welcoming our two speakers. We have Rose and Robert. Rose is the program manager, and Robert is the senior systems officer. Both work for Mercy Corps in Liberia. And basically, Rose is going to kick us off, and then we'll hand over to Robert. And I think he's going to hand back to Rose for the kind of final word and some of the key lessons learned. It'll be about 30 minutes of presentation. And then the second half of the conversation is really about your questions, and getting some answers and discussion going with both of our fantastic panelists. So again, final reminder, there's a Q&A box at the bottom. So it's easier for us if you put your questions there. Sometimes there's a temptation to put them in the chat. Without any further ado, I'll pass it over to Rose to kick us off, and look forward to the conversation. And then I'll come back online in about half an hour to moderate the discussion. Thanks so much. Over to you, Rose. You're just on mute. If you unmute, then you can go.
So thank you, Mark, and a pleasant welcome to colleagues from around the world. Whatever time it is, we are excited to be here to share it on our program, like Mark mentioned, from Liberia on the consumer goods retailing. Just to add up to what he has said, the aim of today's session is to support learning and innovation, to also discuss some stimulating ideas that came out of the program. And we look forward to the engagement and the participation from you guys as we all learn in the MSD approach. For the consumer goods retailing presentation you will be listening today, we thought to bring out learning around the implementation of the consumer goods retailing in Liberia, specifically in the peri-urban setting, which is almost like rural Liberia. We also want to showcase some learnings around how this consumer goods retailing and leads to capital investment and somehow access to finance for youth, which is helping them get some self-employment. Uh, just before we go through our presentation, we would like to just provide a brief background of our Prospect 4 program. The Prospect 4 program started back in 2021 and it's a Swedish funded program. And we are into 5 sectors, and the consumer goods retailing is one of that sector that the program used to target youth employment in Liberia. So when we say MSD for E, just in case you are not accustomed with the term, it's market system development for employment. And that is the kind of strategy that the program is leaning towards. So we'll kick off quickly to our first slide, which talk about our segmentation. Okay. So during our MSA, we had a very diverse group of youth identify our MSA being our market system analysis that was done for the program. uh, we had this very mixed group of youth that we wanted to work with, and we identified them into the segment that you see here. We had youth in the quadrant of low skill or no skill, some no skill, low skill, some high skill. And we found out that most of the youth at the no skill, low skill quadrant were leaning towards more self-employment, and many of them were female participants. So we talked to this segmentation, help us kind of identify a specific sector that we can get our participant integrated for what we call self-employment under the program. So for the consumer goods retailing, the hustler and the startup coin, which you see here cycle, are those target group that were identified mainly in the poultry sector, the fast moving goods sector, hairdressing sector that meet this kind of intervention design that we taught to go through. This segmentation also help us to narrow down on sector that have high youth participation. As you know, with the Liberia context, we have like 60% of the population are youth center, and there are many youth in the country, and especially for those that are being impacted by the unemployment rate. So this section on the segmentation of youth help us to see that we have more youth that do not have skill or have low skill that can fit into the sector to be able to have self-employment, while we have other sectors that focus to high potential youth or partners that can be able to create job opportunity for youth in Liberia. So this is just the background of the program segmentation, for which we are going to have a deep dive on how these targeted youth were being rolled out in our consumer goods model. So I will kick it off to Robert, who will take us through the intervention design and how it actually work with these youth in this segment. Thank you. Over to Robert.
Yes, thank you so much, Rose. Thanks to the Being Exchange team as well. Thank you so much for this platform, and I want to say thanks to you all for your time. Just listening to us sharing our learnings from this intervention. So just to check back on what Rose said, when we're doing the segmentation, there is two specific areas of employment we consider. There was self-employment and wage employment. So when you see the category of youth selected in the consumer goods retailing, we actually focus on self-employment. So most of the learning gathered is specifically around self-employment and not the wage employment, because for this sector, our target group are on self-employment, as we call it. So the consumer goods is more of a story, and the story is, how Prosper transition over time, Prosper 1 all the way to now we implementing Prosper 4. And we've been doing direct delivery all through Prospers, and coming to Prosper 4 is now market system development for employment, because Mercico as an agency is keen on sustainability. And as you all may be aware now, all they do not focus, they're more focused now on sustainability and how market interaction markets are performing in alignment with their contribution, in alignment with the different support that they're giving. So just an overview of the sector. When we started, trying to make the analysis from the market, Liberia in the context, Liberia being a teen market, there are four specific sectors that we categorize youth. and to weigh and see which sector has more opportunity for youth. We map out four specific areas. The first one, we talked about agriculture. Agriculture, we have 15%, and there are norms around agriculture and young people in Liberia. Some young people feel agriculture, because it's not at a merchandise level, so they feel agriculture is a dirty work for old people. And even though there are young people there, but also it was not the most acceptable one for this intervention. And then we move to the service enterprises. There are a lot of young people involved in the service enterprises. But again, there are three parameters on determining our intervention area. So we look at the relevance of the sector, the sector as a whole, how it contributes to our overall result, how it contributes to the market constraints, and we also look at the opportunities. So opportunity to skill. So we see, okay, there's opportunity in the market. There's opportunity for young people to have to gain income or to make income, to be self-employed. But how will the market respond to this opportunity? So we also look at the opportunity to skill at a bigger level or at a large level, where you see a lot of young people getting involved while they're benefiting, as well as sector actors are benefiting. We also look at the feasibility. So when you hear Rose talking about urban and peri-urban, one of the reasons why we selected the peri-urban area at first is because of the feasibility of the intervention. So the intervention is more feasible in the peri-urban, where we feel after the market analysis, where there are less risks at a pilot phase. So risks in this context in the peri-urban area is small in size, everybody connected to each other, rather than the urban area that is really wide, and it will take a lot of energy and a lot of resources from the actor to be able to monitor, stock on credit or consumer goods on credit. So that was the background. Based on this data that we collected, we decided that the micro enterprises most specifically fit the sector that we want to work in, but moreover the intervention. Yes, Grace, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so to all MSD programs will obviously go through the MSD mapping. So we did the analysis on the MSD mapping, considering the rules and norms, and also considering the supporting functions. So for this intervention, where the program specifically tie almost all the resources, was to see how the supporting functions, which was like a blocker in the pilot phase of the intervention, how can this blocker be removed in the intervention? Like, people feel comfortable now doing consumer goods retailing with young people. So the key things that we recognize in the pilot phase, like for instance, basic business development. So a lot of young people are involved in the business. They're doing the traditional business, but standardization is a problem, where the lack of record keeping, where making informed business decision based on data, these things were not available. So we believe that in a market where there are so much norms, where there is so much belief for young people that young people are not credit worthy, just removing some of these blockers is a key to the intervention flourishing, or is a key for the sector and young people to be able to get self-employment. So all of our supporting functions, everything we're going toward, both from a young people side and the partner side. Later on in the slide, you'll get to know, how the rules and norms play out, how the partner actually establish a guideline, credit scoring guideline for the first time. It has never existed, because even the regulatory body in Liberia, they don't have like a standard for credit scoring or credit issuance. So some of these things were actually addressed, and these were our focus of support for the partner and for the young people. So later on, we'll get to learn as we go through the slides and as we get to know more about the business model. So the business model was quite interesting, and we can say it was one of the easiest business model to develop, because The partner we selected is Jungle Water, and this partner is a local, like a Liberian business, one of the best Liberian merchandise business. And I mean, later on, we're also going to talk about the lesson learned, but I'm just looking at their model, we are able to see how their chain of distribution, their operations, and then we're able to fit in this intervention directly into their model. So the only difference here is the youth that is in the center. Initially, Jungle Water get goods from a manufacturer, they get goods from distributors, and then they distribute to independent retailers and also their outlets. And then the consumer market connect to the outlets and the independent distributor. So just from the data collected from the market analysis, we realized that young people are more engaged with the consumer market than, than the retailer. For example, young people are in the community, they are in the general market where people go, to buy. So if young people are empowered, with stock, because like from the background of the intervention, like most of the team markets, most of the markets like in Africa or the Middle East, the access to capital or the access to finance is really challenging. And right now in Liberia, to have a banking institution to be able to get credit to young person or a small business is hard because again, the same thing where there is no credit worthiness, where the bank is unable to determine the internal rate of return for a particular business. So it's difficult. And even if a small business will get a loan from a bank, it will be a small amount with maybe 25% interest rate. So introducing consumer goods where young people can access stock and then be able to pay back in a turnaround period, that's how we place the young people as micro enterprises in Jungle Water model to be able to get supplies and reach the consumer market. And the benefits or the importance of that for us is that you're going to get more income because the scenario, like any other business, the more you have the available stock, the more you sell and the more you get profit. So the more profit they generate, they're able to be self-reliant and they're able to be employed. Rose, go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this data is for the 6 months of our operations in a pilot phase. And in a pilot phase, as Rose said from the beginning, the program operates on 3 key pillars. So access to work, more work, and better work. So as I said initially, the intervention is more focused on self-employment. So like most of the data we're collecting or the most of the information we're getting, they are more on the participant and how they're affected directly by the intervention. So access to work, we gather information that okay, some stores or some employers are saying young people, we need more young workforce, but the skill capacity to able to occupy certain positions are not there, so we can get the kind of skill that required for the job market. And on the other hand, young people are saying we got business ideas, we need to do business, but access to finance is challenging for us. So from the initial stage, the partner decided to invest in this model as we've all agreed from the initial stage. The partner invested and we also invested. So one key buy-in for this intervention was, okay, now in the market, no one trusts young people to give their goods, their investment. So how can we change the narrative? So the narrative is we incentivize the intervention so that we can get a buy-in from the partner or the actor at Jungle Water. So okay, we tell Jungle Water, if you do this model, these are our constraints, these are the market constraints, these are the blockers. We believe that once we remove these things, young people will do better. So you say, okay, once prospects were, we're hedging the risks. We're saying, okay, if you give 37,000 goods to young people, we'll give you the 37,000 as a guarantor. That once you give the goods, you're not going to lose. And you're able to calculate even if there's default, you're able to calculate and take your default rating. So this was how it was easy for us to get a buy-in from the partner because we incentivized the approach, the intervention. So right in that, from the result from our pilot phase, we saw that young people were able to pay 75%. So just to highlight, we set programmatically, we set our result goal to 60% repayment rate. But after the first evaluation, young people reached 75%. So it was a gain for us. And now we're seeing that like there's buy-in now more from the partner because they're taking on initiatives. They're even doing the intervention way as a sign of skill from the pilot phase that we started to see. They started to invest more time and even started to invest in their staffing as well to incorporate this model into the system. So to talk about the better work and more work, I will Rose go to the next slide and I'll explain it better in the next slide. So the better work for this intervention is now, if you're a young person, the baseline, we conducted the baseline. The average a young person will make on a monthly basis will be around 60 in profit, $60, United States dollars, or up to max $100. So just from the pilot result, we saw that in two specific cases, one young person were able to gain in the 6-month period, they're able to get 2,000 net attributed income change. So if you calculate that over a 6-month period, they went beyond the minimum wage for Liberia. And the minimum wage for Liberia is $80 per month, which is $15 LD, $15 LD for like on skilled laborers. So having a $2,000 United States dollars for a 6-month period, you're going beyond. So for the program, we attribute that to employment. So that's self-employment. Now, this young man and this young lady, they're able to expand their investment. They're able to expand their business location to be able to get more gains. So some of the gains, like some of the learnings that we gather from this assessment, like the actual voices of young people who are participating. We talk, number one, was the relevance of the business development support services that we provided. So some of them felt like this was the extra knowledge, like they appreciated, but just by applying this to their business, they're able to make financial decisions, they're able to track their financial records, they're able to like make real-time decision based on the data they have. So this is one of the things that they applauded. And we also there was one particular challenge that they highlighted in terms of the exchange rate. So in Liberia, we trade in both United States dollar and Liberian dollars. So for partner like Jungle Water, they buy their goods in United States dollar, and the local partners, which are our target group, they are trading in Liberian dollars. So if you take a goods now and you have to pay in certain period of time, sometimes the rate fluctuates, and in less than no time, your profit will get affected because you're gonna pay more in the next 2-3 weeks when you're doing repayment. So those are some of their constraints, and that is kind of unique, to most of the markets that will be implementing such a program. Yeah, Ross, you can go to the next. Okay, so our systemic change vision, there, we actually tabulated this from the beginning of the program, what we intend to see in the market, what are the changes that we really want to see in the market. And as I connect to the story where young people were not trusted, but now from the pilot phase, we can see that partners like our partners gaining interest in young people taking stock, because the benefit for them is their customer range is wider now. There are more new customers coming to them because of the retailing on credit. And so our systemic vision is actually in fourfold. One, we think of behavior change. So when we talk about behavior change, it's from all actors in this sector, like in a model. So importers, there are certain goods, that they will bring over time that may not go as fast as possible. But if you make them, like if in the pilot phase, the data that we generated from this pilot, we realized that importers can actually be their actions can be trickled by the change in the market. So there are certain goods that are really fast to go, and that's the focus of the young people, fast moving consumer goods. So importers are able to you know make decisions based on the actual market performance. Also, our partners, we think that the mindset of our partners, the different market actors, where young people are not credit worthy, they can trust that this system will work or this intervention will work. Just having that, just changing our mindset from a data perspective, because all the businesses, like any other business, will rely on data to inform their decisions. So if we have sufficient evidence to show that this matter work, it's easy now for a partner to believe it and for a partner to replicate this over time. Young people as well. So if you're a young person, you're doing business and you're sincere about the business you're doing, the mindset that, you're not trustworthy, we try to incorporate that, like tell them that if your mindset, if people get to see you differently, that behavior change where you now, like if you're taking a goods on contract, you're able to pay back in time, you're able to ensure that you expand. Now, people like other actors, other players in the market will start to trust, what you do. So just talking through the crowding replication, we think that the matter is so unique, and this is really good. And we feel what could be best is if this is successful, this can actually be replicated across other sectors. And, right now we're seeing signs, we're already seeing signs that the model is relevant and other actors have started to copy the model and we talk about improvement. So if the sector or if the intervention reach at a point where now you see a lot of buy-in from other actors, the model will start to be better. So we thought one of the reasons why we even came to the webinar is to see how sharing our learning, sharing our business model, how other people can, critique it as well as copy the model. But we just want to see how the model can be improved over time. So for the scalable plans is our expansion plan, like from this pilot phase in 6-month period in a peri-urban area. And then right now in the urban area, we have, as a sign of skill, we already have one partner that is taking this model. But here's the change. Instead of the partner absorbing the entire workflow where they'll have to like allow young people to come and access, they're now using a business development firm. And the business development firm, they're already doing contracting, they're training people, they're training young people, so they're able to like be a guarantor to this partner that's currently copying the model, and they're just supplying, and the BDS firm now is being paid to monitor, is being paid to collect the fund for this firm. This is for the urban. So as we learn that there are different approaches when it comes to the setting and when it comes to the partner's own acceptance of the intervention. So on a larger scale, employment is the greater goal. So if we already tested this with 132 young person, and we believe that this has gained a lot of interest, a lot of young people coming now. This has been translated into actual job because young people, from the evaluation, from the data we have, young people are gaining way more than if not like five times or more, they're gaining, and this we attribute it as employment because the focus of this program is for young people to have access to job, like a better job, and more job in the market. So Rose, you can take us through the next slide.
Thank you, Robert. I think this has been elaborate, and thank you so. Thank you so much, Robert, for providing the detailed insights for the consumer goods retailing intervention. We'll quickly look at our lesson learned. For our lesson learned, we talked to look at areas of engagement with the private sector actor. So the private sector actor, we think that there is more to get the private sector actor or the firm that a person wanting to use the consumer retailing model could be able to get the person to understand the intervention, understand the idea, wherein the actor can have a buy-in. When we say buy-in, we are talking about the actor seeing opportunity for them to grow, opportunity to expand, opportunity to increase their profit as well. If they don't see this opportunity or feasibility or have the kind of buy-in that they can see or prospect that working with you can bring them that incentive, it will be very difficult to engage a local actor that will have a buy-in for the consumer goods retailing. We also look at what we call distortion in the market. Distortion in the market, the idea is that for MSD for e-program, what we're looking at using the private sector actor to engage participants on our behalf. Here in Liberia, we use the shaded visibility model because for our program, the norms and perception here, everything that comes from our NGO or international NGO is free. If you will want to roll out a consumer goods retailing model, you will have to keep the organization who is hedging the risks or providing some level of incentive at the back. Because once the participant or the youth get to know that this is from an organization, the level of interest to fully engage with the local actor or the private sector actor will be limited, and you will not have more youth performing because they feel, quote unquote, that this uh, service or this intervention is free and it's donor money. So another aspect around learning that came up has to do with the background of more youth who are female being engaged in the private or the micro enterprise sector. The reason that we chose this sector was because we noticed during our MSA that in the consumer goods retailing sector, we have many of our female in this sector, and many of them are not skilled. Many of them have low skill as well. So if you are using this model, you have to look out for the target group. For us, our program had the strategy of doing gender balance on our program. So if your program is looking towards having that gender balance, it would be good to look at where you have more youth participant in terms of gender balance. We also, like our first slide, we also look at segmentation. The segmentation is important for inclusion of various target groups. You don't want to leave out those target groups that are mainly affected by whatever constraint you want to address. For us, it was unemployment, and we noticed that most of our target group are within that are unemployed are between low skill and no skill. So for us to meet that target, we had to segment them in a way that we find tailored programs or intervention that are relevant for them. Then we also have our last lesson learned has to do with digitization. We feel that for the stock on credit model, you have to have some background, or the private sector actor has to have some leverage to invest in the digital system to be able to properly track information on youth, on their credit behavior, on their scoring, on their rating, to be able to some kind of upskill the model to a level that is more beneficiary and you can have more participation of you. So on that note, we'd like to end here and over to you, Mark, for the question and answer. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, thanks, Rose and Robert, for kind of giving us the initial kind of overview of the background and some details on the intervention. But I'm sure people will be hungry for some of the specific details. I've just seen a question come in on the Q&A from
Yeah.
Howie, S&V Leeway. And Leeway did a Beam webinar quite recently, which is kind of a nice follow-up, Rose, the point you were just finishing making around kind of how you assess youth and credit scoring and this kind of thing. So the question, if you can see it, what are the basic criteria of selecting the youth or MSEs, taking their trustworthiness into account? And then there's a few more questions that she's asking. Are the MSEs typically formal or informal? And is having like a physical shop or place to retail mandatory? Are they allowed to kind of be selling in a mobile mode? So I think helping kind of like really get it clear in our mind,
Okay.
kind of who are the kind of clients or the targets. And I think it would be interesting in seeing like how did prospects think about this like criteria and selection, but then also like how much is Jungle Water, how much have they taken over that part of the process themselves, kind of applying their
Okay.
criteria. So maybe that's a really nice tangible starting point.
Okay. So thank you so much. I think from our segmentation, the diagram will show most of those youth that were targeted are informal. They are within the informal sector. So you will see that many of them are not like real registered business. They are almost like foot soldiers. They move within the community, the surrounding, and they just sell what they have quickly and go and restock and back just like that. So they are not like quote unquote former businesses. Also for on the side of the private sector actor, introducing the model brought a lot of stress to the sector actor. For example, they did not have to tailor staff that were just dedicated towards monitoring the youth because you know the youth are many. So they had to bring in someone to who would specifically handle the kind of monitoring that were needed, but also tracking records of those that are paying and repaying and being replenished. They also had to set up specific system even though at that time it was not digitized, it was just Excel sheet. They tried to formalize the QuickBooks system to include that kind of credit system or reporting for the youth to see how their revenue was improving in terms of the sale they were making over a period of time. And the private sector, I thought, also confirmed that indeed they were making more sale because the youth being the force, so they are moving all around the community. Uh, Nima, where this program was held, is almost it's the second largest county in Liberia, so it's a very big place, and we have like almost 15 political sub-districts that these youth were assigned. So you will see that they were making more sales and they were reducing their inventory. They also helped them to restock as they were restocking youth, getting it out, and you see that the warehousing and things, they try to put in a lot because with more goods moving out, not like the contemporary or former businesses that will come and buy it, easy to track, but people coming in on a regular basis, it took them some time to balance the system and just get adjusted to the model. So I don't know whether I hit all of the points that were raised.
I think you got most of it in terms of like explaining this is highly informal and you're
Yeah,
talking about kind of that mobility. I mean, obviously Robert at the beginning talked too about kind of when he showed that picture of the intervention model saying, look, the youth that we're talking about here, they're living in the communities. They're kind of
yeah,
moving around and operating, and that's kind of an advantage that it seems like you guys were pitching to the partner. Maybe just anything specific. I don't know, Robert, do you want to come in here? Like
yeah,
in terms of
Yes.
evaluating trustworthiness,
yeah,
because you
Yeah.
talked about that prevailing norm that can we really trust young people? Am I really going to give you $1,000 worth of stock? Aren't you just going to run off and never come back and pay? Like
You
that
know.
thing that you were overcoming.
Yeah.
What did you implement and what's Jungle Water doing now in terms of, I'm sure they've learned and adapted kind of how they screen kind of
Okay.
the current micro distributors, but I'm sure if they're looking to expand, like that's the key part of the process to get
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So, thank you, Rose. Thank you so much. Rose covered it, but just wanted to give the information like what Jungle Water did. Like we gave this to them as a responsibility. They develop like an operational manual. So in the operational manual, there are criteria, selection criteria. And one of the selection criteria, like few of them that, that help Jungle Water to know who they're working with. Number one, you at least you have to be part of like association all the informal businesses in Liberia, they are part of some, they have the Petty Trade Association, they have the women group in the market, in the general market, they have a women group. So you have to show some alignment to these groups, to be for Jungle Water to trust you to give you some retailing goods. And also they're able to in that manual, they're able to calculate what will inform them to give if you're taking a $250 goods over a certain period, how would they be able to give you a $500 goods? So a credit scoring system manually in a book, they actually did that. So right now, at the next phase of this pilot, what we're doing with them now, we're building a credit scoring system. We have a Canon group that's in country right now building their credit scoring system. Because their financial system does not have the credit scoring model, they're now dealing with a system that has like holistically their entire business model in a box, even through record, the stock on credit, the different services that they're offering in just one system. So that's one of the things that we've been able to work, along with Jungle Water.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. I mean, it's an interesting example too of you showed us that initial kind of classic MSD donut in terms of some of those constraints. And I think,
Yeah.
credit scoring, it definitely was on there as a constraint. So hearing that you've moved forward the actual
Yes,
distribution
yes,
model, but you're still working on that other constraint, right? I think that's part of
yes.
the
Yeah.
MSD playbook is not that one intervention is not going to make
Yeah,
everything work.
exactly.
You can pick a piece of
Exactly.
it, but you still have to work on the other pieces. Thanks. We've got another question coming live. This is, I think, from Odette. Basically, could you explain more about the cultural norms around female-owned enterprises, and kind of how the project dealt with that, the specific and different needs of young men and young women? I know you guys touched on this kind of briefly, Rose. It was one of your kind of key
Yeah.
lessons and insights, but it sounds like a little bit more detail around, what are those norms at play for this group of youth in Liberia? And how have you guys, what different techniques have you tried to get around that? As we all know, changing norms is hard work.
Yeah. So the story around the female participation during the MSA were kind of actually interesting. It will interest you to know that most of the female-owned businesses or female youth self-employed businesses, they are single mothers, and many of them were struggling to stay in business because of the responsibility that they carry. And most of them were kind of like partnering with either a man to be able to stand as quote unquote strong business. So we had to make sure that they are more like empowered in terms of having access to credit. Uh, Here in Liberia, the perception around female is that they are more credit worthy than the men. So, yes, women are more likely to be trusted with credits than men. They believe that men move faster, but with female, they stay because they know they have responsibility to look after, they have their kids, they want to move forward. Some of them have school fees, some of them want to go back to school. So we saw that even with the stock on credit model that more female actually like make repayment as compared to the male because of the kind of and trustworthy system that is attached to the female youth in Liberia when it comes to perception and norms about female. And also, you for the MSA, we also found out that most of the female in the peri-urban setting are actually of no skill or no skills. Some of them have not been like educated, they did not go to school. So this business, this kind of consumer goods retailing kind of fit them in a holistic way, meaning this is their life, this is everything, this is what they believe in, and this is what they want to go. So they take it to the core and they like champion it to the best to be able to deliver on the intervention. Maybe Robert will add something to that. Yeah.
Just two quick add-ons. You know, when you talked about, I don't want to be specific on what the program implemented or have the kind of young people or women participation. So there are two things I just jotted down. Number one, we're Jungle Water were more flexible on the time of payment for women because there are some constraints for women. For some of them, they explain that like they have to take care of kids after school, like they have shorter time to operate a business. So they have to go to the market maybe from morning to 12, and then they have to go and take care of kids at home. And sometimes they have to go to the market late because they have responsibility in the morning to take care of kids. So there are some constraints that they explain to Jungle Water, and Jungle Water able to give them some leverage of time, to repay. So if you are scheduled to pay every week, like outside of the other person, you have leverage of maybe 3 days. It was actually 3 days after the due date. So there are leverage for women. One of the things that were also important is the type of business because in Liberia there are certain goods they are known for female, like the fresh fish, kind of food like most women are known in that area. So one of the things that we did to select a partner that able to provide this kind of goods to women. So there are specific goods that women are known for. So Jungle Water are able to provide those specific goods that tailor to women, enterprises. So those are some of the things that we did. Just thought to highlight those two.
Yeah, no, thanks both. That really kind of provides an overall picture. Um, We've got lots of questions that came in before the webinar. So I think, I'll encourage anybody who's still here and listening, yeah, please jump in and add another question. But for now, I'll go to kind of to the back pocket and some great questions that got asked beforehand. I don't think many of these people are here, but that's fine. We still get to hear their voices. So there's a couple of nice questions from West Africa, which I really like. I'm going to start with a question from Cynthia Sosu. She's with Technoserve in Benin. She had a great question, really digging into the kind of financing, the kind of credit itself. So her question starts kind of what credit facilities are available to young people, kind of what's the duration, the maturities, and the rate applied. And when you were developing that kind of mechanism, was there any, did you partner with microfinance institutions at all, or was it directly kind of the program negotiating with the wholesaler? And then finally, I think just a context question, like what's the effective interest rate? I don't think I heard you guys mention that. This is a good one. Is it the same as what you'd see in commercial loans? Is it different? How aware are the youth of kind of even how to calculate what effective interest rate they're getting? Or are they just happy that they're getting, stock on credit? So a couple of great questions from Cynthia. Rose, I don't know if you want to start there. Or
Yes.
go
I was
ahead.
sat there. Firstly, just to provide the overall background, the program was completely void of MFIs and bank. It was specifically and directly with the distributor, the wholesaler, and there was nothing to do with microfinance institution. So in terms of rates, there was no, or how do you call it? There was no interest rate on the goods given to, or the consumer goods given to the youth. They were just incentivized to pay back and get replenished. I think the private sector actor saw that as a way of increasing his sale, which could in turn bring him profit. So he didn't have to add interest rate on what were given to the youth. So that was completely like understood from the beginning of the interaction and the engagement with the private sector actor. But Robert will come in with the details on how it went down in the field. So Robert, just
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rose. And to be honest, that's a really good question, Mike. The first question about what are the credit facility? Yes, there are credit facilities in our market here, but number one, they're not affordable for young people. So specifically, there's when we're talking about young people access to finance or access to credit or loan, we're talking about the affordability, the rules, and the guidelines around credit facility in Liberia. Is they were interested to know that for you to have access to loan from a microfinance institution, for example, okay, they will tell you you don't have to bring maybe a $1 million property value for collateral, but they will tell you you have to pay like when you take the goods the first month, you have to start paying the next month. That's the duration of payment. That's one constraint that young people cannot meet. Another thing is the interest rate. So if you're doing a small business as a young person in Liberia, if you're looking at a turnover of around 100 or $1,000 or 500, as a profit over a month period, and you have to pay for the facility like with interest, and there's 25, the minimum is 25%. So you're paying 25%. That is huge for a young person with a small business to be able to take that kind of credit facility and pay over time. You'll not realize anything. So, the collateral that is around the credit, you have to have property, you have to own property, which is not the case for young people in Liberia. So you not see a lot of young person with a vast land who is willing to use that land as collateral. So the credit facility is here, but I can simply tell you that it's not for young people because of the different parameters around the credit. So I think I answered the question already. The maturity and the rate. So the minimum rate is 25%, and then you have to pay like a month right after the loan. So those kind of constraints, it's hard. We engaged a microfinance institution that went the road and model through initially, but the reason why number one they didn't agree is we tried to test this model. You can add interest at the beginning stage, and they're not willing to let go of the interest. So if they're telling us if you want us to model this, you have to pay for our staff, you have to pay for logistics for monitoring, you have to, like the investment prospects we're going to make was going to be kind of huge. So it was not possible for us to work with a micro like a financial institution. Yeah, so those kind of things were
Yeah,
actually
thanks.
yeah.
No, I mean it really brings it into stark contrast with what has been working with this kind of embedded
Yeah.
credit. So thanks to both of you. We've only got 4 or 5 minutes left, but I can see more questions are coming in, which is great. So another question from Adet. Does the program aim to shift youth businesses into the formal economy? And is that a realistic goal in the context? How do youth view that? Do they see formalization as a burden with, registration, tax, other fiscal issues? I think that's a really neat question, both in terms of your program strategy. Also, you guys have been pretty focused on the kind of youth centricity. So how do the youth themselves see that? And
Yeah.
just before you guys answer, I'm just going to mention to everybody on the call, we do a survey at the end of each of these. It takes like 2 or 3 minutes. So we've just popped the link in the chat. So as you're listening to this last answer or two, please give us your feedback. Sorry, over to you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. This question is interesting. So yes, the entire goal of the program, is to elevate young businesses or small businesses from the informal sector to a more formal sector. You growing your business from maybe a wheelbarrow retailing to a shop, it means you have to now pay tax. So Jungle Water also has another category of people that he work with. Like if you have a shop and you're a customer of Jungle Water, he able to provide you like a 5,000 or above, worth of goods. So most of the young people have set that target to be in that category. So once you're in that category, there's new rules that apply. You have to have like a current tax certificate. You have to be registered as a business before you reach that facility. So the program and the overall, our goal is to see how young people can perform in this sector to a place where they're moving to the formal sector. So Yeah, just to be brief on that question, yes, that's the goal of the program.
Thanks. And me, Rose, or either of you, the
Yes,
youth view
so
on that,
just
are they wary of it, or they're open to it? You said they want to be in that category, even though it's gonna.
yes,
Okay.
no,
So
what I
just sorry, Rose. Just the system, around the country alone can make them to comply to the rules. So even though like they're aware that it's supposed to be registered, but a certain category in Liberia, the tax regulation don't go on people who are doing petty trade. So once you're in the wheelbarrow, you just have to pay your dues to the Petty Trade Association, like you're paying 1,000 LD per year. So once you move from that, like a formalized location, now the tax regulation going to go for you because you have to be in tax compliance. So even though we're telling them, but there are also systems in place for them to ensure that these businesses are compliant formally.
So maybe just a quick addition to what Bravo has said. We have a special cross-cutting sector across all of the sector called our informal norms sector, where we try to teach youth how to get formalized business. It's a special program that is integrated within each of these programs. So what we do is we do some knowledge, awareness, and information to youth on how and what are those benefits that you stand to get if you are a formal business. Right now, we are even engaging bank to be able to loan to small business and youth. So we try to encourage them across all the sectors that we are working in to be a more formal business. Yeah.
Thanks to you both. Well,
Yeah,
we've hit time. I'm sorry we couldn't quite
yeah,
get to the last question from Richard about processors, but maybe we can take that into a LinkedIn forum on the Beam
yeah.
Exchange or something like that.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, a big thank you to Robert and Rose for putting in the time, the preparations, and yeah, a really lively discussion. Thanks to everybody for coming and sending in your questions. And yeah, just a final reminder, if you can take 2 minutes on that feedback form, it just helps us stay sharp, stay on our toes, and let us know what you're learning. And if you're interested in presenting some insights from a program or programs you've worked on, then yeah, please do get in touch. Otherwise, thanks everybody, and that's a wrap.